Hello everyone, welcome to Kalam's answer writing session for the day. So yesterday I've opened up a question on energy related issues and I asked you all to think about it. Okay, I hope you have done the due diligence about that particular question. So we're going to discuss that question today and see how to evolve subheadings in that particular question and how to go about it. Okay, so why has this question been asked? Because in the recent times, 1 or 2 days ago, there was this article in Current Affairs which was talking about draft national energy policy. So one of the recommendations of this energy policy was the creation of a single ministry. Presently there are so many ministries which are present in the energy sector. This is not fruitful, this is not optimal in order to come up with good outcomes. So we have to create a single ministry is what the report has said. The report has said other things also. This was one of the major recommendations of the report, and in this particular context a question has been framed. Okay, so let's see what the question is. I'll briefly read it out to you all. We've already done this yesterday, and then what do? We convert it into an introduction, body, and a conclusion format. Okay, so the conclusion I'm already done, 1 or 2 line conclusion, which is decent enough, not too vague, not too difficult to understand. How do I start the introduction? We will see all that. So managing energy related issues in India present challenges of coordination, and there are challenges of optimal resource allocation, resource utilization. So there are twofold challenges here. Critically analyze the statement and suggest suitable steps to be adopted. So basically in this context there are basically two themes in the question. The first theme is basically a statement. It is asking you to critically analyze the statement. That is the first theme. What is the second theme of the question? It is basically asking you to give the measures. So I definitely have to talk about the measures. So I talk about the measures to handle the situation, the measures measures to improve coordination, measures to improve the optimal resource utilization. These are the measures of my answer. What else do I have to talk about? The first theme is talking about managing energy related issues in India. So how about I talk about the challenges of coordination and resource utilization, because that is what the statement is telling me. So there are challenges of coordination and resource utilization in energy scenario, in the energy sector. We are going to talk about it because the whole question is revolving around energy related issues. Why not give a small brief about energy related issues? What are the energy related issues we have? Like for example, there is an imbalance between the renewable and the non-renewable resources. Okay, we are giving too much focus to the non-renewable resources, and recently there is a push for renewable resources. Okay, that is one kind of energy related issue. What is the second kind? Some areas are not getting enough energy. Those areas which are mostly urbanized are getting more energy resources, and so on. That is another kind of issue. Similarly, there are a couple of issues, and these issues will be discussed very briefly, because that is what because I'm using this to only introduce my question and warm up the body of my answer. This and this are really important for me because these form the crux of my answer. So how do I start my introduction? One way to start my introduction is to talk about the draft national energy policy. Sir, the draft national energy policy has come up. It has come up with so many recommendations, and in this context the energy scenario in the country can be discussed as follows. That is one way. The second way is to talk about the energy consumption in the country. It's a fact based introduction in which you could say, sir, the energy consumption in the country is basically the fourth largest in the world, with so many gigawatts, or so much is being taken, so much of petroleum is consumed, so much of oil and gas is consumed, and so on. In some of these facts can be used in order to introduce your answers. You have to establish in the introduction itself about the growing energy crisis in the situation. That will warm up your introduction to this, because once you do that, you move forward and tell them that there are so and so energy related issues, and then you show them the challenges, after which you talk about the measures. Okay, so that is going to give you a complete answer. So let's see what this person has done. The introduction is the following. India is the fourth largest consumer of energy in the world after USA, China and Russia. This is a good introduction. Okay, and then this is only poised to grow considering factors like population growth, urbanization. So presently we are the fourth largest consumer, but this is also going to grow because our population is growing. You have 1.2 billion population now, and it is soon supposed to surpass China by 2027 or 2037 and so on. There is urbanization. There are so many peri-urban and rural areas being converted to towns, and towns are being converted to cities, and cities are being converted to mega cities and metropolitan cities. So all this requires lots of energy lots of energy consumption, and this is a reality that we have to face in future times. So here he is basically establishing the energy needs of this country. So next he is talking about energy related issues. What are the issues present? Balancing renewable and non-renewable energy. So that is one issue. Only 10% of geodetic potential used. Okay, so this is an irrelevant fact, because 10% of geodetic potential being used is used in terms of minerals. Overall, if there are 100 units of mineral wealth in the country, including bauxite, aluminium, iron ore, steel, coal, petroleum, and so on, of all these, 10% of that area is being used. Here we're talking about energy resources alone, not every other mineral. So this fact is not strictly relevant, but he has written it. Okay, and then there are problems in discoms because there are lots of transmission losses. The discoms are in losses because they are not charging the end consumer well, because of popular backlash, because of political compulsions and so on. That is another kind of energy related issue and electricity related issue. And then there is poor efficiency of conversion into electricity. Whatever energy we have, be it oil and gas, be it crude oil and so on, all these things try to convert all these things more or less move to electricity in order to finally generate the mechanical power. So this conversion into electricity is not correct, okay, is not efficient, is what it is saying. And then there is poor spread across regions. This could have framed better. What it's trying to tell is the energy consumption in certain areas is more, in certain areas it is not up to the mark. Energy production in certain areas is more, energy production in certain areas is not good. So he has tried to point out several issues in the energy scenario. Okay, so this is a good way to start your answer. He's basically pointing out the energy related issues. Then he's supposed to talk about the challenges in coordination and the challenges in optimal resource allocation. So what are the challenges he's telling me? So overall energy sector is managed by 5 ministries, and because there are so many ministries, there are overlap coordination issues. That is one point, good point. Second is, while INDC targets, so INDC targets are those pledges which have been made by India in Paris, in line with Paris Agreement, and India has said that it will meet so and so demands. 33% of emission intensity will be decreased and so on. All these things have been pledged by India. Okay, so these try to boost the renewable energy, but then we are boosting coal power. We are trying to becoming more coal intense, so that is not a right kind of coordination. That is one issue. So coal mining in tribal areas resulting in eviction is another coordination problem. So the tribal ministry and the power ministry and so on, they are not in right consonance with each other, because of which the tribal eviction is taking place, the rehabilitation is not going well. So coal mining is supposed to have taken place in a humane manner. It is not happening. So that is another energy related issue. So this is basically a human aspect of the energy related issue. So the coastal states are capable of producing wind and tidal energy, because the coastal areas have, because of geographical reasons of course, the coastal areas have faster winds which are more unencumbered. They are faster, so they can produce more tidal energy and wind energy, and this is not being focused, is what he's telling you. And then the resource allocation is not in line with INDC targets. Poor state of funding. This part is good, but this part seems to be generic. What is he trying to say? Is he talking about the resource allocation in terms of the funds to different states, or is he talking about the resource allocation towards coal vis-a-vis the renewable energy? Okay, so he should have mentioned this, because it was a separate part, right? So challenges of coordination is part 1, challenges of resource allocation is part 2, but he is spending too much time on coordination. He probably doesn't have good points, he probably doesn't have enough points on resource allocation, which is why he probably did this, but that is okay. We are supposed to evaluate the answer. Next, small hydropower projects are under MNRE and larger projects are under Ministry of Power. causing coordination trouble. So there are some kinds of coordination issues because 25 megawatts ke niche they come under MNRE, Ministry of Renewable Energy, and above that they go under Ministry of Power. This creates coordination issues. And then there is poor coordination between private players and government in PPP projects. So these energy projects more often than not involve PPP projects because the gestation period is high, the money involved, the capital involved is quite high, and it is difficult for the government to finance it all together. So the government goes for PPP projects, and these PPP projects are not functioning well because the resource allocation is not equitable. The risk allocation is also not equitable. That is another reason. So he has overall established coordination issues well. He has established coordination issues really well, whereas resource allocation issues he didn't establish that well, but that is okay. So suitable measures to be taken. He's talking about the model in UK, USA, in which there is a single ministry which looks after the total energy scenario in the country, and this model has also been pointed by Niti Aayog, and in fact it was also pointed out by Kelkar committee. Okay, anyway, pushing renewable energy while gently tapering coal, oil and gas. So you have to push your renewable energy so that you will meet the INDC target of 40% of energy component being renewable energy. And then he is also talking about the existing coal power plants being upgraded using this super thermal technology, supercritical technology. You can increase the efficiency of the thermal power plant. So he's asking you not only to decrease the coal consumption, the coal based energy production, he's also asking you to upgrade, to modernize whatever coal production you're doing at the moment using the supercritical technology. And then he's talking about impetus to help is basically a hydrocarbon exploration policy, licensing exploration policy. He's talking about private players should be given more autonomy, especially in marginal blocks. And then he's talking about revenue sharing models. So this is to improve coordination, first thing, and increase optimality. Like for example, private players previously didn't venture into difficult blocks because their profits were not good enough. Now if the private players takes up the risk and ventures into difficult blocks and explores oil and gas, he can price that according to his will, more or less. So that gives him the incentive to go into deeper areas and dig the oil. Previously that was not there. So that kind of autonomy is required. So you have to boost models like this, the help like models, under which private players have more autonomy, first thing. And then there is revenue sharing models so that there are no coordination issues. Previously we had production sharing models, because of which there was conflict between the government and the private players, and this led to lots of legal troubles under NELP, because of which we moved to HELP. And under this you have revenue sharing models in which there is no conflict as such. And then he is talking about hybrid solar and wind energy farms to reap benefits of both the powers. So the bad part about solar and wind energy is that they require huge amounts of space, and land is such a scarce resource these days, it is difficult to find them. So you can use solar and wind energy. Solar energy is basically available in the morning, so wind energy can be tapped in the night using the same farm. So in the same area you have also solar technology and you have windmills, wind farms. So both of them can be used in the same area in order to optimize the power generation, optimize the energy. Next you have Uday scheme and decrease in transmission losses to put discoms in profit. Okay, so you have to put the discoms in profit, and for which you have to move forward with the Uday scheme, in which the center and state share the burden of the discom debt, which was to the tune of 4 lakh crores if I remember right. So all these points can be done to improve the situation better. And then he's telling you to adopt draft national energy policy, which will enable India to keep up with global energy transition and be a leader in adopting cleaner energy resources. Okay, so what are the comments on this answer? This answer seems to be an overall average answer, not above average, because some of the points didn't hit the direct crux of the question. He was supposed to talk more about resource allocation, he didn't. He spent too much time talking about coordination issue. And also while giving measures while giving suitable measures, this is a good point, but what about help? Is it really directly related to energy? He could have talked about the resource allocation in terms of biomass. He could have talked about the nuclear power. He could have talked about the other forms of renewable energy and the funds which are related to them, so that he could establish a balance in the energy scenario in the country. Okay, so that is one thing he could have talked about. Also, he didn't talk about India and coordination with other countries, because India imports 80% of its crude oil needs from the other countries. So that aspect of the energy has been ignored by this person. And also, he didn't mention too many schemes except for HELP, which is not a scheme per se, it is a policy. But instead of this, some schemes could have been mentioned which in relevance to this particular question. Okay, so overall this answer seems to be not so satisfactory, but then this gives you an idea about how not to write an answer. So he tried to write some points in order to strictly lie within the mandate of the question, but then he swayed a bit. I want you to read this read this sample answer once and pick holes by yourself and try improving on this particular answer. So we will move forward and we'll open up the question for tomorrow and see what it is. So this question is on anti-defection law. Okay, so anti-defection law is basically launched by 52nd constitutional amendment during Rajiv Gandhi government, in which he basically wanted to prevent the political horse trading from one party to another party. So he came up with a law which prevents that kind of horse trading, which prevents movement of these MPs from one party to another party and so on. So that was the essence of anti-defection law. So did it meet its intended objectives? Explain. He's asking you to explain. Having said that, you have to suggest suitable measures, if any, to be taken in this regard. So if you think that anti-defection law has not met its intended objectives, what other steps can you suggest to improve the situation? Do you know any recommendation from Sarkaria Commission or Punchi Commission and so on? First thing. Secondly, do you have any international model which has better anti-defection law? Like for example, in Britain, the speaker takes the decision not by himself, but by a body. Speaker plus two other members take the decision on defection. In India, the speaker alone takes the decision, and it creates some kind of bias in the speaker. So those kinds of structural measures could have been talked about. So I wanted to talk about this, talk about introduction, body and conclusion, and in the body what are the side headings that you would like to have. Okay, so that should end the discussion for the day. I'll meet you all tomorrow. Thank you.